Hello and welcome back. Again today we are headed back to Hong Kong, but one thing that is really probably a theme about this series of images that I have going on in Hong Kong is you probably think of something more like this, or maybe even this when you're thinking of Hong Kong. And my goal when I was there, I wanted to get something that was not quite as obvious, I guess the best way to put it, not quite as cliche about what Hong Kong is. So I went to the island of Peng Chau, and we were at the island of Peng Chau in the last video as well, where I made this image. But here is a little more of the view of what the island is like. Just this nice, really narrow road, narrow area where you're just kind of walking through as you get on out to the more residential areas. And I'm going to hand it once again over to myself in Hong Kong. This time we're talking about the design principle of Border Patrol, where we go through these ideas. What are we thinking about as we're setting up our composition?
All right, this next principle I want to talk about is what I call border patrol, and that is to think about the edges of your images, but also I extended it a little bit to think a little bit more about maybe the edges of my subject as well, and making sure that my subject is being shown nice and cleanly and we just don't have anything distracting and pulling away from the subject. Effectively, we want to add to it. If something is going to be in the frame, it needs to support and add to the subject. So on this, with my subject, it's certainly the bike, the presence of the background here, and just how it all just comes together in this overall scene. It just really struck me. I really liked it. Love the textures, love the dominance of the bike, the bright colors of the bike. Everything is just working really well. But then when we start thinking about how am I going to frame the scene, I want to make sure those wheels are not too close to the edge. And so that's, again, the principle of border patrol. And then I want to think too about this stairway that we've seen people using. I actually love the fact that it's in the scene, because as we come back, this is our main subject, and then you have a little bit of the stairway going. I think that really adds to the scene. It just tells a little more about the story to the scene. But then we have all this stuff with the piping. So I'm actually going to be cropping that out. And then after that, I started thinking too, saying, well, what about that thing that's kind of behind the bike wheel, that little mailbox thing? Kind of really didn't care for that either. So I tried moving it, and then I was like, nope, it just has to be gone away. And so then here's my final image of this scene with the cropping of the edge, that thing gone, and just making it about this, making it about the scene overall without those extra distractions.
Okay, back in the studio here once again. This is really actually kind of a nice, simple image, a nice, simple scene. And there are a few things that I'm going to kind of sort of, I guess, talk against what I said there in the field. And this always happens. I think you understand that. When we're in the field, we have certain thoughts and ideas. When we get to post-production, whether using Lightroom like I'm using or anything else, we start to have these ideas where it means a little something else. Whatever comes across. So here's one of the first shots I made, and actually the very first shot of in the frame, in the scene there in Hong Kong. You saw I was shooting up this direction, and quite frankly, that is just messy and chaotic. I think I just wanted to give you a sense of what the place was like, and a feeling of what things are about there. And here we are in that marketplace once again as well, where it's just nice and everything is really intimate, really close in. I love little places like this. It's really rare for me to find something like this here in the US, and when we experience it, especially in a different culture as well, it's just wonderful to experience. But we get to the first shot of this scene, and as I'm building out the scene and I'm trying to think about all these items, I kind of told you what I'm thinking about. These items where I'm looking at the border, I'm looking at how these things interact with each other, but are not distractions. I don't want these things to distract from the main subject, which is that little bicycle. And I had talked about the idea of exact placement and things like that, and how I might want to crop out those pipes on the side there. And as I'm moving through from one image to the next, you can see, I'm zooming in a little bit, I'm experimenting a little bit, trying to get a feel for what truly is the essence of this shot. And as we bring it in here, you can see I moved that thing out to the side, that mailbox item out to the side. There it was before. I was like, nope, we got to get rid of it. And then I was like, get rid of it completely. We just have to totally isolate it and get rid of it. And you can see I zoomed in a little bit. I did end up keeping those pipes on the side though. The reason I decided to keep those pipes on the side, they were that extra element that launches you visually up the stairs. As you go along the bottom of the frame, you're kind of sort of brought up a little bit to those stairs, but I wanted something to just kick you over there. And I really didn't see it that way when I was in the field. So I'm all thinking to myself, I'm just going to crop it in post-production and not care about it. Now, here's one thing I could have done too. I could have taken the whole camera a little more over to the right. That would have shifted the position of the bike a little more to the left in the frame, and then I would see more of those stairs going up, and that would then also provide that extra visual invitation to take you up into the frame. But as it is now, I'm really pleased with this because we have a little bit of a dichotomy going on of what we normally want to see, I guess we could say, in an image. That bike is largely centrally composed. That vertical item in the background, the wall that it's leaning up against, is pretty much right in the center, and everything is symmetrical on the left-hand side, the right-hand side, as it relates to the measurement, as it were, of what's going on in the frame. I paid attention to those vertical lines and made sure they are parallel to the edge of the frames, the edges of the frame, I should say. And it just, that is something where usually we're looking for something in the neighborhood of rule of thirds, things like that. But this kind of breaks that rule. And I'm actually kind of happy about how it breaks that rule, because that means there's such a lot of stuff going on the right-hand side and virtually nothing going on the left-hand side. For me, that balancing out this peaceful region, this more energetic, chaotic, more stuff going on region, is just this yin and yang type thing to where it is balancing out, and then the bike is what's bringing it all together. So I hope you enjoyed this look at what is happening here in Hong Kong with this creation of this image and how it is that it came together, what the thought process is as I'm trying to build the image, trying to get an idea out there for what it is that I'm trying to say here in an image. And hopefully this helps you kind of think about your process. That's kind of the whole point here. I have two reasons for why I do this. You as a photographer, I want you to be able to just see how someone talks about it and thinks about it, and then you can create your own thoughts and your own ideas about your own imagery. And you as a collector, if this were to be in my release of my monthly prints, then of course I want you to have the story behind the scene. I want you to be able to have this to reference to. So if you were to have a print on your wall, whether it's at home or your office, wherever you are, you're able to also understand more of that story behind the scene, and hopefully that gives you more value as a collector of an image. I haven't decided whether or not this one will make it into my fine art store, but I'm just kind of getting that idea out there. The reason why I do these things, kind of a twofold, and that is, again, you as a photographer, you as a collector, we have these stories I think that are important to understand the reasons behind it and how these things get made, how these things get built otherwise. Well, that wraps it up for this video. I invite you to hit that subscribe button. I invite you to comment below, ask a question, make a comment, whatever you like. I would love to know your thoughts. And certainly stick around, because in the next video, we're going to have some more good material about making the next image and what is all involved there, the behind the scenes of what's all involved there. Until then, God bless and happy shooting.
And it looks like we have another one of our friends driving by, so we're gonna let them we let them do their work too. We're just kind of here in their way. So anywho,